Hello and welcome back to Doubles and Trebles. It's Pieman here with your latest World Championship update. 8 became 4 yesterday at the Alexandra Palace in the 2023 World Darts Championship as Dimitri Vandenberg, Michael Smith, Gabriel Clemens and Michael van Gerwen booked their semi-final spots. The first of those pair progressing through two tight contests against Johnny Clayton and Stephen Bunting, respectively, before two much more one-sided affairs on the evening. The shock of the day by far, of course, was the German giant knocking out Gerwin Price before tournament favourite MVG dismantled Chris Dobey in what was a pretty brutal whitewash in the end. It leaves us with semi-finals of Gabriel Clemens versus Michael Smith in the top half of the draw before MVG takes on Dimitri Vandenberg in the bottom section. So let's dive into the two matches, starting with the top half clash. Gabriel Clemens and Michael Smith is our first semi-final, and let's start with Gabriel Clemens because I've taken an awful lot of stick on this channel over the years for showing what admittedly was a little bit of blind loyalty to Clemens. But that's because I've always kind of felt that the German giant has something special in him. He's always had this immense scoring game, but he had a really kind of mediocre start to 2022. And unfortunately for me, that was the time when I thought I had to kind of cut ties and cool my interest in Clemens till he showed a little bit of recapturing his form. And he has shown that over the last couple of months in the Euro Tour and on the floor, but I still didn't have all that much confidence in him coming into Ali Pali. But he's brought his very best to the table, so fair play to him. I've got to say, I think it's a real shame that all the headlines from last night's game have been about his opponent. To an extent, you should expect that. You're playing a big name in Gerwin Price, and when you knock him out, he's always going to be the talking point. But the carry on with those ear defenders and the crowd has stolen all the thunder away from a man who averaged a ton virtually throughout compared with Price's sort of mid-90s. And that is ultimately what won the game. And we shouldn't really be surprised by that. I mentioned this on our quarter-final preview. They've both played in a similar pattern to how they've played in the tournament so far. Because of what we associate with Gerwin Price, we say that he's growing into the tournament, averaging 93, 94, 95. But Clements has been up near that 100 mark for a couple of games now. He's really, really good against Alan Souter. And it was a brilliant comeback against Jim Williams. So we shouldn't really be surprised that he had a little bit too much in the scoring department for Gerwin Price. I think what we can be surprised with that is when the pressure was highest, Clements managed to lift his game even to a new level. And that is something we haven't seen from him previously, certainly not on the biggest stage anyway. As I say, he's always been a world-class scorer, but he seems to have found that added belief and playing with a bit more conviction. The doubles are still a little bit shaky at times, but because he's played so well, he's carving out multiple opportunities for himself. And if he keeps scoring the way he is, then he's going to get chances against anybody. He takes on Michael Smith tonight, and I thought that Smith, on the complete other hand, was really fortunate to come past Stephen Bunting yesterday. He averaged a full 6 points less than Bunting throughout most of the match, and he was really reliant on the bullets missing his doubles. I think he spurned 26 darts more at a double than Smith. That is huge. And that reflects the contest perfectly, to be honest, because Bunting outscored the bully boy for huge chunks, but was just unable to convert that scoring into legs enough. Even when he was 4-1 down, I still kind of felt like Bunting could come back into it, which was, completely at odds with what the market was saying. I think Smith was trading at 1 or 2 at that point, but let's be honest, he was never playing like a 1 or 2 chance. And Bunting just continued to play at the level he was, and he got it back to 4-2, 4-3, and he really spurned a lot of chances in that 8th set to force a decider in which he would have had the throw. And I thought at times Michael Smith looked down and out. It was only a really good performance on the outer ring that kind of saw him stumble over the line. You do have to give him credit for that, though, because it's very easy to win a game when you're playing well, much tougher to win a game when you're not playing anywhere near your best. He's definitely found another level of calmness at the back end of matches, and I think that naturally comes with winning a major. It served him really well in that tournament because I think against Schindler and again against Bunting yesterday, he has won purely through showing more composure at the business end of the match, where he's been outplayed against an opponent, but his attitude and mentality has got him over the line. So fair play to him for that. He comes into this semi-final as a huge favourite. Let me just get the betting markets up on your screen for you here. So if we click into that one, as you can see, Gabriel Clemens currently, and this is of 11:30 this morning, a best price of 5-2. There is money coming for him, 9-4 in a lot of places now. I think he could continue to shorten in towards a 2-1 region. Michael Smith there, a general 1-3 chance. So that is quite a strong favourite. And for me, that is based purely on reputation rather than what our eyes have actually shown us when watching this tournament. Clemens has averaged over a ton for 6 sets against Gerwen Price with the pressure fully on. So even if he was to drop off, say, 5 or 6 points into the mid-90s tonight, he's still going to ask serious questions of Smith because we've not seen Smith really sustain a ton plus average other than that game against Joe Cullen where he was put under absolutely no pressure, Cullen having a nightmare on his doubles. When he has been put under pressure from his opponent, although he's come through it, both Martin Schindler and Stephen Bunting have pushed him all the way, and I have a real expectation that Clemens can push him all the way again tonight. It's going to be really interesting to see what level Smith brings to the table because the market certainly has an expectation that he can't be that poor again. And he suggested as much himself in his post-match interviews yesterday. But it's quite a leap of faith to say that he's just going to suddenly add 10 points onto that average in the space of a day. For me, the contest is as much about how Clemens holds himself together. If he could continue to ride this wave, which is very viable given the bubble that he's kind of in, the huge swaves of support he's got in the audience from German crowds, then I think he has a real chance here. He's a very interesting underdog. And at 5-2, I'd be willing to take that chance with a single. I would also split my stakes on a scoreline because I think if it is going to happen, I see it kind of happening in that 6-3, 6-4 region. I think if it goes to an 11th, the final set, Smith's experience once again would maybe get him over the line. The way I see Clemens winning this is very similar to what he did against Gerwen Price last night, where he gets on top early. He maybe has to ride a few punches and dips, but ultimately his consistent level would see him over the line. Therefore, I think 6-3 or 6-4 Clemens, they're both available 14-1 with William Hill as we speak. Split stakes on that and a single at 5-2. And that'll do me for an interest in that first semi-final. The second semi-final sees Dimitri Vandenberg take on Michael van Gerwen. And at the time of writing, the Belgian is nearly 6-1 to triumph here. Let's be honest, Dimitri has not exactly set the world alight in this run to the Final Four, but he has shown more than enough to make me think this could be closer than the market suggests. I'm just going to get that market up on screen for you now so you can see the match odds here. As I said, Dimitri up at 6-1 nearly on the exchange now, and MVG an almost unbackable 1-7. Yeah, 6-1 on the exchange there for Vandenberg. So yeah, I mean, it's a huge disparity. Dimitri's defeat of Johnny Clayton yesterday was a game where he enters an 8-5 underdog, and it was a nip and tuck contest throughout, mid-90s average affair. But I thought, taking that in a wider context, sets 1 and sets 5, Dimitri had massive dips, averaging in the low 80s. But in among that, he had set averages of 97, a ton, 103, and 110. While his doubles at the telling moments were a lot more convincing than the overall checkout success rate of 36% would suggest. It goes without saying that he'll need both of those numbers to go up tonight, his average and his checkout success. But it definitely can. We've not seen Dimitri's ceiling game for sure in this tournament. He has another 10 points and another 10% on that checkout success in his locker. The question is simply whether he can find it tonight. Though I certainly have more faith in him to do so than Chris Dobey, who I thought completely rolled over against the Green Machine in the quarterfinals. Dimitri is a major winner. He's played in the Premier League. He's won on the World Series this year. He's got loads of floor victories. He's a former World Youth Champion. So he has buckets of big game experience, high pressure situations, and we know that he can raise his levels when he needs to. And whatever you make of his antics with the point in the head and his cringy interviews, you know, like him or hate him, his self-belief is immense, and you definitely need that against MVG. I would argue that most, if not all of the opponents that MVG has faced so far had no real belief that they were going to beat him. Even Dirk van Dijvenbode looked to beat himself in that game. Chris Dobey certainly beat himself. Mensah Suljovic is the only one that you could argue. But even Mensah couldn't really seem to believe the level in which he was playing at. So I think this is maybe the first time Van Gerwen plays someone who genuinely believes he can beat him. And the fact that it's set play here, where these kind of mid-match dips, I mentioned Dimitri having set averages of 81 and 83 against Johnny Clayton. As long as you could come out and regroup and refocus, losing a set is not a disaster by any stretch. And the fact that he has these 100, 103, 110 averages in the locker in terms of a set shows that he can bounce back and make this an interesting game with MVG. That I see a possibility here where Dimitri feels like he's potentially under the cosh in the wider context of the game, but the scoreline actually remains quite tight for a while. Now, I'm giving Dimitri a big up here. You can only build so much of a case against Michael van Gerwen. We said it on our quarterfinals preview, but he is clearly the man to beat. It's going to take a huge dip from the Dutchman or an out-of-this-world opponent performance from an opponent to stop him. Or that's what he tells us anyway. I don't think we learned anything from that Derby match. Hollywood did not turn up. And he actually ended up making MVG look even more impressive than he was, which is something that he doesn't need any help with at the moment. You can't look beyond the fact that he's posted one of the tournament's highest 10 averages in every single one of his games so far, surpassing the 100 average barrier each time. He's 41% on his doubles, which is above his seasonal average. And that suggests that if you're letting him come to the board with a two-dart combination at the moment, you're in huge trouble. On top of that, his level of consistency is putting immense pressure on all of his opponents, and it makes them feel like they have to hit when they get an opportunity, even if it's something in the 120s, 130s region. That completely did for Derby yesterday. I mean, when he was getting to the board with these sort of 3 in 10 chances, he was just getting nowhere near it. And then when he was having 2 clear darts at a double, he was a mile off too. And I think that is the mental aspect of playing Van Gerwen when he's on top form. Dimitri's going to have to stand up to that element of the game far better tonight if he's going to have a chance. What we haven't seen yet, and I mentioned this on the quarterfinal preview, is Van Gerwen when he falls behind. Dirk van Dijvenbode and Chris Derby both missed doubles in the opening set of their clashes with MVG. And Mensur took him to a last leg decider, but came out on the wrong end of it on Van Gerwen's throw. But what I am intrigued to see is whether MVG can sustain these outrageous levels if he goes a set or two down early in the game, because it's a completely different type of ask. He hasn't really been asked any serious questions yet. That's not a discredit to him, but I would like to see him be asked questions. I'm not saying he's not up to it, but it is one of the only remaining unknowns about him going into this tournament. Wayne Mardle made a very good point. I think he was asked whether this was getting close to peak MVG by Emma Patton on yesterday's coverage, and he said he didn't think so because MVG was averaging over a ton in his worst games at that period. Now, we haven't seen him have a worse game yet, but I would be interested to see how he holds up if Dimitri goes a set or two behind. If he stands up to it, so be it. So in summary, this could be, of course, another landslide win for MVG. The bookies certainly think so. But I'm happy to play the correct score markets here, mob-handed, and bank on it being a tighter contest. William Hill, you could back 6-4 MVG at 7-1 and 6-5 MVG at 11-1. I'd be happy to go split stakes on those two. I definitely see him prevailing, but I would forecast it to be much tighter than the money currently suggests. A 6-2 win currently leads the correct score market, shorter than 7-2 in a lot of places. I think that's a little bit disrespectful to Dimitri. And I think the fact, as I say, that it's set play means that he can nick a few sets here and make a contest of it. Ultimately, though, it's very, very hard to take on Van Gerwen. So if you were pressing me for scorelines tonight for a cheeky double, I would be going for 6-4 to Gabriel Clemens and 6-4 to MVG. That'll give us 20 sets of fantastic darts to enjoy tonight. So let's hope that is the case. Let me know what your predicted scorelines are in the comments, and thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and do give us a subscribe if you haven't already here on Doubles and Trebles. Thanks for watching and enjoy the darts.